Hi everyone, Raine here. This video is going to be an analysis of what I'm thinking while I'm fighting, what skills I'm looking for, and tips and tricks for fighting certain classes. Be sure to check the video description for additional information. I used a headset microphone to record the voiceover, so don't expect perfect quality. There's also just a few mistakes in my commentary, but I was too lazy to go back and re-record. I included annotations that will make you aware of any of these slip-ups. One of the first things you'll notice about this clip is that I use leaves dropping and flow gust in order to evade incoming damage. This is a good thing to do versus high AP wizards and witches. You would want to do this in order to save your forward guard for use with the Surging Tide, Void, or Q block as you attempt to get within grab range. You can sometimes judge from wizards' movement when they're about to throw a spell out, and you can preemptively dodge it with an iframe. Two skills you'll need to familiarize yourself with are Water Sphere and Sage's Rage. These are both skills that a wizard will try and use to get a CC on you when you're evading around them. Water Sphere is on a 5-second cooldown and it's a knockdown. Sage's Rage is their raw bomb. It's on a 7-second cooldown and it's a knockdown as well, with increased critical strike rate and increased accuracy. You'll see me try and use Garuda here to get a float on him. Unfortunately, he had super armor up at the time. This was actually reasonably dangerous because he could have potentially grabbed me right out of the Garuda. This skill right here is called Chilling Wave. It doesn't do a whole lot of damage, but it is a forward guard. The wizard's stationary when they're using this, so this is a good opportunity to try and grab him if you happen to have grab off cooldown at the time. Right here I use Void, expecting the wizard to teleport towards me to either knock me down with the Sage's Rage or a Water Sphere. I was hoping that he might potentially end the teleport animation inside of the Void stun. I'm decently sure that he uses Hellfire or Cataclysm here. Cataclysm is a super armor and a bound. Hellfire is a stiffness or a stun. I'm more convinced that it was Hellfire over anything else. Both Cataclysm and Hellfire have flow damage from the pet, so you need to be aware of that when you go in for a grab. If the pet is standing behind you, then you can end up taking a lot of damage from that flow, which is what you'll see happen here. Let's step back and take a look at the combo I use here. I start with Grab into Echo Pierce, followed by Moonlight, Garuda, and a Leaves dropping to get behind him, then a Legendary Beast Dance, all-around spinner. I cancel that midway through with a Flow Gust, and then I end with a Bolt Jolt and a Resonance. If a wizard is chasing you and he suddenly stops moving, then look to see if you can notice his arms above his head. This would be the animation for Bullite of Destruction, which is a hard-hitting AoE skill that can be positioned from range. Wizards will use this to try and break your forward guard. It has a 100% crit rate, so it's best to evade it. The casting animation is rather slow, so you can grab during the start of the animation if you're fast enough. This skill that looks like a swirling pool of water is called Aqua Jail. It applies a movement speed debuff, and more importantly, it's a super armor. This is actually a great time to grab a wizard if you happen to see them casting this. They'll frequently use it when they think that you're going to hit them with a Garuda or something like a Vermilion. One thing I didn't notice at the time of this fight was the fact that he had magical shield up. This is a buff that gives him 15% resistance to all forms of CC, that includes grab. Typically, this isn't a very good time to grab a wizard. Got a little bit lucky that the grapple actually went through. This missile skill that you'll see here is their Raw Bomb Sage's Rage. It does a lot of damage and it has a high crit rate. It also has a knockdown effect, so you need to be careful with this when you're evading around them. It's perfectly capable of shredding all the way through your forward guard. Combo you'll see me use to kill him here is grab, echo pierce, leaves dropping to get behind him, Vermilion, all around spinner, bolt to cancel that, followed by resonance and surging tide. This clip right here is meant to showcase the importance of reading your opponent. After fighting this warrior several times, it became clear that he was going to continue to play aggressively. I had just caused this warrior to use his emergency escape. Immediately after his V, I ran up the hill to see if he was going to end the animation at the bottom of the ramp or the top of the ramp. Right now I'm looking at my minimap as I run back down the ramp to try and spot his white dot right as he comes out of his V. I see his indicator appear on the map right before I weapon swap into Awakening. Playing mind games is essential to all PvP fights. With that being said, mind games are even more essential on Tamer due to their low defenses. I wait until the very last moment to turn around and iframe away from his grab attempt after seeing him appear on my minimap. The idea here is to make him think that I wasn't watching my minimap. I block right before I use iframe, just in case he throws a piercing spear at me, which is range stiffness. One final thing to notice here is that I stand in void to see if he's going to stay stationary for a moment, or if he's going to walk into the void stun. I'm also judging whether he's close enough for me to do a iframe and legendary beast power, just to get on top of him for a grab. For this clip, you should keep in mind what I was saying during the previous recording. These players have been playing rather aggressively thus far, so I'm expecting them to continue to do so. I'm expecting both of them to collapse on me at the same time, especially after I get hit with Piercing Spear. After Piercing Spear ends, I iframe away and throw down a Void Tremble to give myself a super armor disengage from Void in an attempt to not get grabbed by the warrior. After I step out of Void, I block to confirm that both players are going to get hit by the Void stun. Once the Musa steps into the Void, I iframe behind them to get some extra damage from the back attack, and I float both of them with Garuda. I use Vermilion immediately after Garuda, just in case one of them resisted the Garuda. The combo I use here is Moonlight, Garuda, Legendary Beast Dance, All-Around Spinner, Bolt, Jolt, Grab, Echo Pierce, Moonlight, Full Moon, Bolt again, and Resonance. The purpose of this clip is to show that you need to know when it's appropriate to disengage from a target. At the beginning of the fight, you'll see his hands appear above his head, channeling a Bolide of Destruction. After blocking the damage, I turn to create some distance in order to refresh my forward guard. As I'm running away, I get hit with a Retardando buff, which is -50 move speed, cast speed, and attack speed. I strongly recommend that you don't go offensive when you get hit with that debuff. If you look at his buff bar right now, you'll see an orange and blue icon. This is Controlled Madness, which gives them an evasion, accuracy, AP, and DP increase for 30 seconds. It's a wizard's e-buff. Directly to the left of this buff icon, you will see Sage's Memory. Sage's Memory makes all spells instant cast for 15 seconds. This is going to be a very difficult skill to notice in the heat of combat, but he uses Speed Spell here as well, which increases his attack speed, move speed, and cast speed by 20% for 30 seconds. Needless to say, he's trying really hard to kill me right here. Right as I grab him, he uses Protected Area, which gives the wizard 999 DP for 5 seconds, and it's on a 2-minute and 30-second cooldown. Staying near the wizard right now when he has all these buffs up and he's going offensive would be very unwise, so I get as far away from him as I can while he's on the ground. This clip is here to illustrate that it's important to react quickly when you miss a grab on a target, and just as the previous clip stated, you need to know when it's appropriate to disengage from your target. Scratch is a great super armor to use after your grab misses. When fighting both wizards and witches, you should be aware that they can use their teleport to evade your grab. So if you ever grab them and they suddenly disappear for a split second, that's because they use teleport right as you grab them, and you more than likely need to use your iframe to get out of the way so they don't hit you with the spell, especially something that's a knockdown. As for the rest of this recording, I see him put his hands up in the air, so I know he's about to cast Bull Light of Destruction. I turn around and I iframe out of the way, and then when I go back at him for a grab, I use Tree Climb in order to evade a Sage's Rage or a Water Sphere. I do a fairly large amount of damage to him rather quick here, just by using Grab, Echo Pierce, Moonlight, and then LBD. Of course, after the Moonlight, I probably should have used Full Moon instead. So the combo would have been Grab, Echo, Moonlight, Full Moon, and then LBD. And then maybe all-around spinner if he didn't B first. After emergency escape, I use Tree Climb and Surging Tide to avoid any sort of incoming damage. After his teleport, I get hit with a move speed debuff, so I sit back and I wait for that to wear off before I go in for a grab. I did notice his hands up in the air, preparing to cast a Bull Light of Destruction, so I dodged out of the way before I went for my grab. There's one more clip of this wizard before we move on. When I'm engaging on him, I start with iframe into super armor, and then I use Surging Tide for forward guard. I get the grab on him, and I go into Echo Pierce, followed by Moonlight, and then Legendary Beast Dance. I do all-around spinner, which I cancel with my iframe leaves dropping, and I do Bolt Jolt Resonance. I was standing on his side, trying to get back attacks. Witch is one of the easiest classes for Tamer to kill. With that being said, a geared witch can still one-shot you if she catches you with the knockdown, or if your grab resists. Almost every witch you fight is going to try and knock you down with Detonative Flow. The skill is a relatively short cooldown of only 5 seconds. The skill that you see here is called Voltaic Pulse. It's a super armor with a bound, and it's on a 7-second cooldown. If the witch doesn't hit you with Detonative Flow, then they're more than likely going to use this skill. Be aware that Voltaic Pulse has a pet flow that can hurt pretty bad if the pet is standing behind you. This is Voltaic Pulse again that I get hit with. Notice that it applies a 15% movement speed debuff for 10 seconds. Right here she puts up Magical Shield, which applies a 15% resistance to all forms of CC for 30 seconds. So I need to be ready to iframe out of the way if my grab resists. The combo I kill her with here is Grab, Echo Pierce, Moonlight, Garuda, All-Round Spinner, Bolt Jolt, and then Surging Tide just in case she gets up, and I end with Resonance. When going up against a witch, you want to use Cloud Ride with caution. A skilled witch will typically teleport away when you use Cloud Ride, and they'll hit you with the Detonative Blow or Freeze, then they'll attempt to get a killing blow. I'm going to go ahead and summarize a conversation that I had with someone from the Witch Discord. She stated that if we can bait 2 to 4 skills out of a witch, then it's best to just go full offensive, because we have our iframes available to evade damage. She stated that the worst thing she sees Tamers do is pressure her, make her blow her teleport and other defensive abilities, then stand back blocking. She stated that at that point she has very few cooldowns remaining for about 6 seconds. The implication here would be that she has no super armor from Voltaic Pulse or Equilibrium Break for 6 seconds. Here we have another clip that illustrates how good it can be to lay a void when you think someone's going to aggressively chase you. As previously stated, noticing patterns in your opponent's behavior can give you the upper hand if you react accordingly. After getting destroyed by this Kuno, I realized that he was starting nearly every fight with Tendon Cutter. Technically, you can grab a Kuno during this animation, but I strongly recommend that you don't. It's very difficult to pull off successfully, and Tendon Cutter applies a stiffness at the end of the animation. I strongly recommend that you avoid hit trading with a Kuno or a Ninja. They have a lot more protection available in their kit compared to Tamer, so you're going to end up taking a lot more damage than they will, and you'll more than likely get CC'd a lot easier than them. At this point I'm aware that she's going to use Tendon Cutter as soon as I get on top of her, so I use Scratch for the super armor to go straight past her. I then use Void and Tremble for the super armor, and the chance to stun her out of Tendon Cutter. I weapon swap with an Echo Pierce into the center of my Void for the chance of landing the Stiffen, and I iframe to her side. Mobs are in the way, so I don't grab. I Garuda and try to float her, but it resists. The combo I use here is All-Round Spinner, Leaves Dropping to cancel All Around, Bolt Jolt, and Resonance. Try to predict where a Kuno or a Ninja is going to come out of Shadow Cloak and throw down a Void and a Tremble in order to protect yourself and potentially CC them. Up next we have some Duels vs. Timebomb. I'm going to say right off the bat that I only won about 9 to 10% the total duels that we did for this video. Timebomb does a very good job at utilizing his pre-awaken kit to pressure Tamers and stay as far out of melee range for as much of the duel as possible. Evading his knockdown from Blasting Gust and Tearing Shot, down smash from Penetrating Wind, and stun from Tearing Wind is difficult enough as is. To make matters worse, he's very well practiced with using Evasive Explosive Shot, Call from Sky, Wind Step, and the rest of his awakening kit to evade any form of CC when a target is within melee range. I'm of the opinion that it's rather unlikely you're going to see many rangers who are as difficult to catch as Timebomb. For the sake of these duels, I requested that we start every fight with me at max bow range so that I could illustrate the different methods for closing the gap on a ranger. Let's take a look at the clips that I just showed. Here I use my Void Tremble, and my handling gets hit by Waltz of Wind, which has a knockback effect. This stops my handling from completely completing the void animation. Here we have an example of how dangerous it can be to use Cloud Ride versus Rangers. The delay between use of Q block, leaves dropping, or legendary beast power leaves you very vulnerable to getting CC'd at the end of the Cloud Ride animation, right as you make contact with the ground. Be sure to use Cloud Ride with caution. This is an example of absolute blasting gust being used to escape my grab. This can be done with evasive explosive shot as well. Here I use Cloud Ride to engage, and I use leaves dropping to get behind him. He immediately uses wind step to iframe away from me. Once I get back on top of him, you will see this animation that looks like a ball of electricity in front of him. That's Elven Rage. You'll most frequently see a ranger use this for forward guard or super armor. The animation is rather short, so if you can move quickly enough, then this is an opportune time to land a grab. Right after Elven Rage, he uses Call from Sky, which is a super armor. If you get an opportunity like this to grab, then you should take it versus a ranger. Odds are you might not get another chance. Try to find an opportunity for a grab attempt anytime you get within melee range. The skill that I get knocked down by is Absolute Blasting Gust. The knockdown effect has a 7-second cooldown, but rangers will frequently spam this when they're kiting you. The skill is one of their bread and butter range damage abilities, along with ultimate charging wind, which most people call shotgun. This duel is a good example of why you should take a grab opportunity any chance you get. I just barely missed my first grab, but after just one defensive void, my scratch and tree climb cooldown are up, allowing me to go on the offensive once again. Grab comes off cooldown right as I aim my legendary Beast Claw towards the end of his breezy blades and flow rushing wind animation. Both of these skills are super armor, as is the Call from Sky that he uses immediately after rushing wind, so Beast Claw would not have knocked him down in this situation. Legendary Beast Claw has a rather huge delay on its super armor at the start of the animation, so I would suggest using it to primarily close the gap on a target, like I do here, or to extend your combo on a target that has already been CC'd. Here's another example of how evasive explosive shot can get a ranger out of grab. Notice that resonance does not stop the knockback from walls of wind. At the end of this upcoming combo, I get hit with rushing wind then I believe Vine Knot, though it's a little bit difficult to tell in the recording. If I would have stayed in my tree climb animation and let the super armor linger instead of doing Surging Tide, then I might have escaped some of this damage. Right here I just use all-round spinner for the forward guard. Your odds of landing a tremble stun on a good ranger are pretty low, so I suggest just using it for the super armor. The scratch during Vine Knot could have been a kill if Echo Stiffness wouldn't have resisted. I'm going to let most of the next 7 duels play out without saying much, just as an example of different ways that you can land a grab on a ranger. You'll see a red arrow trail here. That's penetrating wind. It's a down smash skill, so you only see a ranger use this to extend their combo when you're already on the ground. Here's another example of wind step being used to escape grab. Waltz of wind knocking me back through resonant super armor. Unstopuhhbull was kind enough to provide me with some duels to use for this video. In this first clip, you'll see him make use of legendary Beast Claw to safely close the gap on the Mystic and land a grab. The combos that you'll see him use typically won't kill a Mystic that's hybrid build, but they will certainly do a lot of damage to a full AP build Mystic. Make sure to pay close attention to his use of Scratch and Tremble super armor throughout these duels. During this fight, Unstopuhhbull makes perfect use of Legendary Beast Claw once again, then executes a flawless combo with the safe disengage, utilizing both Scratch and Tremble. Unfortunately, he gets stunned by Wave Orb during Tree Climb, which applies a 50% movement, attack, and casting speed debuff for 10 seconds. He then gets hit with what looks like Sea Burial and his Flow, which is a down smash. The Mystic then uses Spiral Torpedo to pass through the Void. This skill has a knockdown if the Mystic connects with you. After Spiral Torpedo, he uses Thunder Pound, which is a stun on the first hit, and a knockdown plus a down smash on the last hit. It's also a forward guard. The final skill the Mystic uses before he lands a kill is Wolf's Frenzy, and its slow and enhance Wolf Frenzy. Wolf's Frenzy is similar to Akuno's Tendon Cutter, except Mystics are invincible during the start of the animation, and they don't have super armor during the animation. The only other thing he could have attempted to do here in order to pull out a win would have been using Flow Gust and attempting to grab during the middle of Wolf's Frenzy. This duel illustrates superb use of Tremble and Tree Climb with lingering super armor in order to evade the stiffness from Wolf's Frenzy or the stun from its flow. He also stays stationary for a moment at the end of the Tree Climb animation, which allows him to evade the stun from Wave Orb. After the Mystic has blown his cooldowns, Unstopuhhbull uses Legendary Beast Claw and Legendary Beast Power to close the gap on him quickly while staying protected in super armor. The quick use of leaves dropping and the speedy animation cancels on display here are exactly what you need to master in order to kill a geared Mystic. Here we have an example of great use of Legendary Beast Claw at the start of the duel, as well as a superb combo. However, you will see why it can be dangerous to use Legendary Beast Claw at the end of a combo. This duel shows two perfectly executed combos, as well as a protected disengage at the end of the first combo. Notice how Unstopuhhbull uses Scratch and Tremble super armor during Dragon Pit, both in an attempt to stay protected and to try and escape the suction. Commentating anything involving strikers is a bit of a challenge for me due to my strong distaste for the class, so take what I say here with a grain of salt. For these duels, I have gone ahead and marked out all the moments when Danimal is or is not in super armor or iframe. This should serve as an adequate example of just how much protection the striker class has. The only truly reliable strategy for beating a striker simply involves landing a grab and not getting too greedy with your combos or the pressure that you apply. The most opportune time to grab would be right at the end of a super armor or an iframe animation. It's possible to land a Scratch, Tremble, or Void, but if the striker is playing appropriately, then they should almost never get hit by these skills. A suggested opening for Scratch or Tremble would be right at the end of Flash Step, Double Flash, Mass Destruction, Infernal Destruction, or Furious Assault. Spiral Cannon is unprotected. However, it's rather unlikely that you're going to land a Scratch or a Tremble during the Spiral Cannon animation. I would instead suggest attempting to land one of these skills or a grab if they follow up their Spiral Cannon with a Ferocious Assault. Keep in mind that Endless Explosion and Infernal Destruction apply their bound and float on the last hit, so be sure to not go in too early for a grab. If you want to play it safe, then I would suggest only attempting Scratch or Tremble at the end of these animations. Be mindful of their large AoE skills, such as Echo Spirit, Rampaging Predator, and Skull Crusher, These skills will not apply any form of CC, but they do hurt pretty badly if you get hit full force by them. Do not overstay your welcome with the striker once you land a grab on him. Be sure to back out before they get up off the ground, or you're going to get grabbed. While fighting Sorcs, I typically play rather defensively and reactively until the Sorc has blown their Dream of Doom cooldown and at least a portion of their stamina. While aggressively engaging, I use Surging Tide when I'm anticipating a Dream of Doom cast. When I get within melee range, I attempt to maintain Super Armor or iframe in order to avoid one of the many CC options that Sorc has available in their pre-awaken kit. A rotation of Tremble, Scratch, and Resonance, as well as your iframes, will typically keep you safe while a Sorc is in pre-awaken, if you can manage to time these skills correctly. Once the cooldown for Dream of Doom is up, I will try to predict what they might perceive as the least expected opportunity for their next Dream of Doom cast. For example, if I disengage from the Sorc and keep my short sword out for more than a few seconds, then it's safe to assume that they may try and catch me with the Dream cast. Although it's more common for a Sorc to use this skill while standing far away from their target, good Sorcs will find safe openings for the skill when they are standing directly on top of their target. A Sorc standing near me in pre-awaken is much more frightening than a Sorc that's standing near me in awakening, due to their liberal use of Nightcrow iframe and their CCs, Shadow Eruption, Beat Kick, Scattering Shadow, and sometimes even Shadow Ignition. Once I'm low on protection options, I will typically use Void and Q-Block in order to recover my stamina when the Sorc is within melee range. Scythe skills like Blade of Darkness, Violation, Grim Reaper's Judgment, Karshan's Nightmare, and Nightmare are easy to spot and react to appropriately. However, it can be difficult to tell what a Sorc is doing in pre-awaken, with the exception of maybe Shadow Eruption, Nightcrow, and Dream of Doom. Be aware that a Sorc can iframe during the middle of their Grim Reaper's Judgment animation, while still maintaining the skill's charging capabilities. The longer a Sorc holds down Grim Reaper's Judgment, the wider the damage zone gets, which in turn makes the skill exponentially more dangerous to be standing near. While it's possible to iframe the Grim Reaper's Judgment, I do not recommend that you attempt to block its damage. During this duel, I show how Grim Reaper's Judgment can be a great time to go for a grab. This fight shows how you can bait and engage out of a Sorc with a fake Void cast when the skill is on cooldown, then a second Void once the skill is off cooldown. I also start casting Vermilion early due to the animation being rather long and the float going off right at the end of the animation. The developers just recently made it so you can go from short sword straight into bow staff with the use of leaves dropping. Right after using Voring, you see me transition into bow staff this way in order to evade a Dream of Doom. Your highline will stiffen a target at the end of the roaring animation. This skill is rather underutilized by inexperienced tamers due to how situational and unprotected it is. Pay close attention to how highline stiffens the target several seconds after I cancel roaring. This duel shows preemptive use of roaring once again. The Sorc begins casting Karshan's Nightmare for the super armor, and I anticipate him canceling the animation with the Nightcrow iframe, so I bait the cancel by pretending that I'm going for a grab. Shortly after this, you'll see me use Tree Climb in prediction of Dream of Doom. This is an example of how Sorc can use Nightcrow iframe to escape grab. Here we have Karshan's Nightmare being cancelled with Nightcrow as I attempt to grab. This is a loss resulting from him using Nightcrow to escape grab straight into a Dream of Doom knockdown. This duel will show what happens when you go in too late for a grab on a Grim Reaper's Judgment. It's also a fairly good example of how to bait cooldowns out of a Sorc with something like Moonlight and then a double tap on iframe in order to stay protected. Here's one final duel that shows how I bait an iframe cancel on Karshan's Nightmare. I also wish to show off the very well-timed Nightcrow and Dream of Doom cast by the Sorc.